KC Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider in just 1 minute. Don't forget, Pick the Perfect Score is coming up at 5:30 tonight. You're playing for $500. When I asked who will survive, KC, you thought I was going Lesnar Goldberg.
That I did. I was at a WrestleMania pre-show party last night in downtown Orlando. The tickets went on sale as of yesterday, right? And today to the general public. And so wrestling is definitely online. I got to interview a lot of guys. We'll be posting some stuff on WWE, including some stuff at Big Cash.
Cool. We'll make sure we get a look at that. And, of course, SummerSlam weekend, Survivor Series weekend. Who will survive, Eagles or the Seahawks? We'll dive into the game tape, see where the matchups are. And one thing's for sure, it is loud. And you wonder when you play a football game and you're going on the road, how much when you just look at a game and say you're playing in Seattle, that changes matchups.
It does change matchups. The thing is, though, is that the Seattle crowd has shown in past years that if you get ahead of them, I mean, they're a very enthusiastic team. By the way, that stadium is almost completely vertical. I've been in there before and get up to near the top and things. It is like climbing a mountain to get up there. So those people are in good shape when they go in that stadium, too. So they've got powerful lungs, and they'll let you know about it. And the thing is though, is that if you can take that crowd out of the game, because you've seen it happen a couple times before, a power running game like this, Seahawks tend to not handle power rushing. If you can start doing that and get it early, like, say, Dallas did there, I think it was last year or a couple of years ago, if you do that, I mean, you can take the crowd out of the game, so it might be a big point for the Eagles.
Hey, one thing is, I want to look at the Eagles' offense first here because they ran the ball very well last week. People are like, okay, let's stick with that blueprint. Let's go with that game plan. Is that something that they can be successful with this week against this defense?
Eagles rank third in the league in my good blocking rate metric that measures run blocking effectiveness. They're at 44.1% if memory serves correct. So, I mean, they are their problem hasn't been quality run blocking, so they haven't been getting good gains when they get good blocking. They've been getting solid but not great gains. But it worked last week. And against Seattle, Seattle's a team to where, they've got that secondary. They don't play a really complex scheme passing game-wise. They just, keep people in front of them and don't give up the big play and then hit people a lot. So that's their role in the passing game. So since they're going to play that kind of shell coverage, it allows you to run the football. And if you're willing to do that and can do that, you can have some success there. So I think the Eagles need to say, got a big dose of Ryan Matthews last week, do the same thing this week.
Yeah, this offensive line, as you mentioned, pretty good at running the ball, run blocking right now. They're kind of in a little bit of a groove, it seems like. But one thing I want to ask you about is play action against this team. Eagles, I say they don't have a lot of outside threat. One guy, Treggs, can get down the field a little bit, but other than him, I know the Eagles' offensive personnel doesn't screen play action, but is this a team that you could use it on?
I think you can get them to. That's a secondary that the Legion of Boom. They want to be known as hitters and things, but they're a ball hawking secondary. They want to make interceptions, and that's a big thing because if you can play action in a team, you can get those players to bite. You can get them to make mistakes. You got to be real careful though. This is one of those games where we've been talking over the past few weeks about Carson Wentz, and he gets out early in the game and he gets all fired up and gets all antsy and things. And that's not something you want to do in any game, but if you're on the road in Seattle, you definitely don't want to do that. So I might try and save some of those big shot plays for later in the game. And if I was going to be throwing any big passes downfield, I'd probably go after Jeremy Lane, who serves as a nickel cornerback for them, and he's someone who has been really hit or miss in coverage over the years. Yeah,
that's something I brought up earlier is even if you're running for like 2.5 yards a carry, stick with it. If you're close in that game and put in your pocket something for Treggs deep, in that third, fourth quarter, try to catch them napping. But the consistency of running the game is a big key in this one.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have to come up with plays like they did early in the year where you're giving Wentz some high percentage plays early in the game. You're running some screens. You're doing some things of that nature. A lot of times coaches like to use the early portion of the game to say, okay, we're going to roll out this part of our game plan to see what the other team is doing. Okay, we're going to put this formation, this set out there and see how they react to it. I think the Eagles don't need to use the early portion of the game to do that. If I'm them, I might actually take some of my most creative things and say, let's do these things first, take the old Paul rule of using your creative and moving trick plays first, get ahead of the other team that way, and then, and just try and make your adjustments on the run, because I think this is a game where you don't want Wentz early in the game trying to make some bigger decisions, trying to make some more complex decisions, because I just think that's an environment for him to be turning the ball over if you do.
Last week, you accurately, presented the fact that the Falcons struggle against the tight end. Last week, I remember seeing Gronk and Bennett kind of having a field day against Seattle. Aberration or something that Zach Ertz and company can really, build on?
Seattle has been inconsistent in covering a tight end. You'd think, because they got a chance, you'd think, hey, this is a big strength of theirs, that they should be able to, to shut down tight ends. But that's been the case actually for a couple of years now. This is not an anomaly for this year or for one game. They've always been solid against tight ends, but they're not fantastic against tight ends. If you look at their numbers, they have Gronk and the combination last week got 10 catches for 158 yards against Atlanta. They gave up 5 for 85 and a touchdown. Even Arizona, who has no tight ends to speak of, they gave 4 for 65. So they'll have shutdown games like against New Orleans a couple weeks ago. They held them to 5 for 39, and Pulina's a pretty good tight end, and they held Clay for Buffalo. They held those to 3 for 9, 3 catches for 9 yards. But they are inconsistent, so it's one of those things where if I'm the Eagles, I'm thinking I might want to test this because there have been times where they haven't held up well.
Yeah, and one area, Carson Wentz, he hasn't taken a lot of shots down the field, as you chronicled in the past. They don't take a whole heck of a lot of shots down the field. But I want to ask you about his accuracy, because he throws a lot of passes short. They get a lot of drops. But it seems like, the throw to Aguilar last week is one where, it's behind him. And I think we all assume or agree that he's got to catch the ball. But as an accuracy for Wentz, what are you seeing there?
Some of it is mechanics. Some of it is where, especially early in the game, where because he gets so antsy and gets so fired up, he'll not, pointing his toe in the right direction. He won't be following through properly. And the thing is, they've given him quality pass blocking. I mean, it's not like it's just, okay, the pass rush is getting him, he's forcing his passes or speeding things up. Sometimes there are times when he's just antsy because of the game situation. It's early in the game, and he's going to go ahead and force a pass. So it's one of those situations where I think if you can tell him trust your blocking and slow down. I'll use professional wrestling. We always tell professional wrestlers early in their careers, slow down because you're speeding up and you're making mistakes. Tell Wentz, slow down, go with the game flow, slow down, and make sure you're making your passes accurate. I think it'd solve a lot of those issues because I think from a natural talent perspective, he's got plenty of accuracy.
Yeah, and this Eagles offense does struggle, but for the most part, they showed that they could run the ball. They have Ertz, and then Sproles. How is Sproles a factor in a game like this?
I think you can use him in the same way because some of the same people, a lot of times you'd have cover tight ends, you can attack those same areas with a speed back like Sproles. So if I'm the Eagles, I might be taking a situation and saying, okay, well, maybe I'll send my tight end downfield and use my some of my speed backs on little angle routes. That's where you come out of the backfield and do like a 90-degree turn outside of the backfield. And really, it's a back-and-forth move that really puts a lot of coverage pressure on the defense, on the secondary. So if you've got a guy like Ertz running a clear out in front of it, it can make it to where, the defense has to think about stopping Ertz, and then they're not thinking about that move underneath. So if I'm them, I'm trying to use some combination routes like that to do things to say, okay, I can get Sproles in the backfield and not let you just go up and physically manhandle him. I'm going to use something else to think about and then run him in counter to that.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider here, breaking down the matchups to watch for this game. Let's flip the script now. Eagles defense, they pressure. Now, earlier we discussed a little bit talking about this game. The Eagles want to get pressure, but they don't want to blitz in this particular game. Should they be able to do that?
Seattle, it's been well chronicled that their offensive line, they coach up their offensive line. They don't pay their as far as their salary cap, the percentage of money they use in the salary cap for offensive linemen is pretty minimal, and so they try and get away with that. And mind you, if you do, you watch the Louisville-Houston game last night. Louisville did some good things all season long, and then suddenly a team attacked their offensive line, and their offensive line that had held up so well didn't hold up quite as well. So if I'm the Eagles, I might try and say, especially early on, maybe when it's close and you've got game situation where you can go ahead and do this and not be one-dimensional, but say, okay, maybe we need to make a big play. And if we're going to pull out our trick plays or we're going to pull out something creative, let's do it early on, because let's not give Seattle's offensive line a chance to adjust to things, because I think if they can use some of that blitzing, I think they can take this line that's blocked fairly well, but I think they can mix things up and get some missed assignments, because that's what's going to take. I think they need to get in there and put some pressure on Wilson, because I don't think teams have been doing that much of late.
Yeah, and Wilson, the one problem is, because Jim Schwartz was asked about this yesterday, Casey, was, hey, the tackles of Minnesota, you really got a lot of pressure. The difference is Bradford and Wilson aren't the same guy.
No, yeah, when you're rushing Bradford, you really don't have to worry about if he gets to the outside, if he's going to run the ball for downfield, if he's going to be able to throw the ball downfield and things. You got to keep him in the pocket and things. I don't want to keep Wilson in the pocket necessarily though either, because he's proven to be an extremely accurate pocket passer. But yeah, if you're the Eagles end, you've got to be worried about that. But they can attack the edges, and I think the key is to get in Wilson's face and to get him to I think if you get in his face early on, I think he's been beyond that offensive line long enough to where if you can get in there and get pressure, I don't want to say you can rattle him. I don't want to use that word, but you can make him think, okay, this is a day when I've got to worry about my blocking, because he's been behind the offensive line enough to know, hey, maybe these guys can't protect me properly all the time. And if you can send the message early that, yeah, we can get in your pocket like this, we can get in the pass pocket like this, I think maybe that can impact his play the rest of the game.
Now, one of the things we like to look at is, the weaknesses of both sides. If Seattle has a weakness on the offensive side of the ball, Procise, I think, is interesting. He adds a dimension. Baldwin's very steady. Lockett, Jimmy Graham starting to come into play. We know their offensive line is a weakness, but in that skill position area, who is the guy that you think Philly needs to kind of keep an eye on?
If somebody who they have to stop?
Yeah, who's the guy that they need to pay the most attention to?
Yeah, if somebody that they need to pay most attention, I still think they need to pay most attention to Baldwin, because he's their biggest player. I mean, he got 3 touchdowns last week. He is the guy. If you look at the matchups, you'd say he's supposed to face Nolan Carroll in coverage, and probably I wouldn't be surprised to see the Eagles maybe move Kelvin around on them. But Kelvin's been, as we've talked about the past couple weeks, he's been kind of hit and miss. But I don't think you want Carroll out there, and I think that would be somebody who'd say, let's take Baldwin out of the contest. We're taking anybody in the passing game out of the contest. And the thing is their running game. I mean, Process looked really good last week. He looked really good. He looked okay running the ball. But he looked a lot better catching the ball. So I'd be curious to see though if they've got Rawls and how much they're going to use him in this game. If they're talking about maybe they're going to bring him in on a pitch count of sorts, and maybe he won't carry that much, and maybe. And we've got to wonder if that's a red herring, and they mean they're going to use him, because if they do use Rawls and he is up to his power running, his power running aways and things, he would be the guy you'd have to start with, because if they're going to give him the ball 20 times, you've got to shut that down.
Yeah, it's interesting because they said that they expect him to be back and play a lot this week, but Procise, man, he looked like he added such a dimension to that team last week, catching the ball in the backfield. He's a big kid as well. So, and they got Graham really going for the first time in his Seahawk existence last week. The last 2 weeks he's really got going.
Yeah, he has, and the thing, and you can even have a situation like Buffalo covered him fairly well. It's not like he got open or like touchdowns in New Orleans where he's doing just jump balls in the end zone. I mean, he's getting up the seam and such and making these great one-handed catches, so that's a concern too. And that's the thing. I think they might be throwing a curveball on Rawls. I think because Seattle, what they want to do is power run the ball and go vertical off of that. That's what they want to do, but they haven't really been able to do that as much this year because just with the injuries in the backfield and such. And they got Michael. He did well, but then they've a number of situations where they've rotated a lot of backs in and out of that backfield. But if Rawls is back and he can give them 20, I mean, I think he would be the guy that you'd want to stop. But again, their run blocking has been inconsistent this year, and Philly's run defense has been really strong in a number of games. So if Philadelphia can say they can win that matchup, now you're putting putting Wilson in a situation where he's got to throw the ball, which can be a catch-22 for Philly, but I think that's where they'd have to start. You're the Philly offense. Where are you going after? I'm going after, first off, I'm power running the football. I'm going to see if Seattle can handle the power running game because I think history shows they're never good at that. And I'm going after a lane, and I'm probably going after, I'm not saying I'm going after a Chancellor, but I'm going to my tight end a lot. I'm going at those three things and say, Seattle, if you can stop these, you win.
See if that happens. Sunday, we'll get Casey's pick on that game here coming up on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. One other thing I want to bring in, it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but the Eagles do it so well, returning kicks. Seattle doesn't cover kicks all that well. That's one spot where, if you're looking for something for the Eagles, turnover, obviously, but getting good field position with those returns. Wendell Smallwood, Kenyon Barner last week. Barner really had a good one. They always seem to break one, and, that's something that could be a big difference maker for the Eagles, is to get themselves out of their own end and not have to go the 60, 70 yards like they did last week and were able to do against the Falcons, those long drives.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. They've done very well in a number of weeks in ESPN special teams expected points added. It measures special teams production, how well you're doing, and it measures on a scoreboard basis and things. And according to that metric, if you're doing really well, if you can turn around to give yourself 3 points a game out of that, if you get 6 points off return and such, where they're talking from the way this particular metric measures, and the Eagles have been able to do that. And Seattle's been inconsistent in that area too. So I have a feeling that that could be an area. I'd like to see Eagles at the very least. I think they could come away with a push in that where they don't lose in the edge there. But I think this is one of those games where they could get a 3 or 4 point edge.
What is the loss of Bennett to this team? How does that factor into this game?
It's pretty significant, but that's a system defense, so it's an individual player is very important to it, but they're not centric. If you look at a guy J.J. Watt in Houston, that was really a J.J. Watt-centric defense, and everything was funneled around him in some ways, or it was designed he's the guy. And I think Bennett's good, but I think they're more of a system defense. So, and then they'll miss him, but I don't know if it'll be quite as impactful, say, Watt would be in Houston.
KC Joyner with us. Let's look at some of the other quick matchups here. Get your matchups to watch in Baltimore, Dallas this week. Ravens on the road at Dallas, looking to go to 9-1.
Yeah, they think that you're hearing talk now that Baltimore's like, we've got a powerful running defense. We can shut down Ezekiel Elliott. It's like, you guys really don't need to poke the bear. You don't do that. That's not a suggested move. Dallas has the best run blocking in the league, and I have a feeling that the Baltimore players are going to regret having said they're going to shut that run game down.
Bears going to New York. The Giants coming off a win last week. They got Bears and Browns. Is this one that you're worried about if you're a New York fan, or is Chicago just out of gas?
If bad Eli shows up, you're always worried. There's situations where New York is always concerned if that's going to happen. But Chicago's just they got Howard in there, but Howard might be banged up. He says he's not, but his coach had said he might be. We lost Jeffrey. They just have so many players gone. Their defense is banged up and things. That's the Giants' game to lose. They would have to have a bad Eli game and just a bad game from a number of their players in order to lose that game. Giants should win that handily.
Sunday night, let's skip ahead to that one. Washington's taking on Green Bay. Which Packers team are we going to get here? We haven't seen a good one for a while. Is it coming back?
The Green Bay wants to be, we've been talking about for the other teams, they want to be a power rushing team that goes vertical. Problem for them is they lost Lacey, they lost Starks, they didn't have the backs to run that kind of a power running game, and Aaron Rodgers has some of the worst vertical numbers in the league this year. He's been able to make up for it in volume and short dink and dunk passes, in some of these games of late. But even that's now becoming something that's not working as well for them. So I think they're a team that can't play the type of offense they want to play. And Washington's defense has played better, and Washington's running game, by the way, it's been very strong. And they've got Rob Kelly's their back now, and they've got Thompson as an alternate back. I think they're not even playing Matt Jones anymore, but they've got a good back. I'm feeling Washington's going to be able to get some ground yards against the Green Bay rush team. It hasn't been as good either.
A couple other interesting games. I'm interested in Arizona, Minnesota. The loser of that, that would be a tremendous free fall for Minnesota. A loss for Arizona, they would pretty much be out of the division race here. Two teams that had Super Bowl aspirations. What's their Week 11 look like?
The problem for Minnesota is now they have so many problems. After they started the season, what was it, 5-0? And after they had that run, I wrote an article for ESPN's Insider section that talked about some of the problems that they had and said, hey, they're 5-0, but they could be even better if they get better in these areas. Well, the thing is they didn't get better, like run blocking. The run blocking hasn't been better. Kicking, they just, they changed kickers now because the kicker, as Walsh was doing so badly. The areas where they were supposed to be able to get better, they haven't, and they've regressed in a number of other areas. Their defense is playing really poorly of late. And Arizona's defense, give them credit for that, has been playing exceptionally well, and they've got Johnson playing well too. So I have a feeling Arizona goes on the road and gets the upset.
Also, another interesting one to me, I don't know if it interests a lot of people out there, I want to see what Tennessee does on the road here against Indianapolis. They've been playing well. I've been surprised by them. Talk about running the ball. Murray seems reborn out there. Mariota's played great, and the Colts have been a disaster.
Mariota's played fantastic. The Colts have been a disaster. They've got an Assistant Coach of the Year award for best assistant coach. That winner should be Russ Grimm, who's the offensive line coach for Tennessee. Tennessee is second in the league in my good blocking rate metric, which measures run blocking effectiveness. They were last in the league last year and went from last to nearly first. It's an incredible achievement. That's the reason Murray's doing so well. And Mariota, now that Murray's doing so well, and now he's got, by the way, the mismatch this week is going to be Delaney Walker versus Indianapolis. So that the Colts are terrible at stopping the tight end, and Walker's been doing great. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Walker score another couple touchdowns. And I think Tennessee goes on the road and gets the win.
A couple other quickies here as we get ready for Week 11. Just get Casey thoughts on a couple of ones. Goff's play in Miami. What do you expect from the first overall pick?
Goff, over his 3 years of his collegiate career, he was 41st in vertical yards per attempt over the course of his 3 years. Did better in his last year in college, but he was 41st over those 3 years. I think the Rams made the change because their next two opponents are really soft against the vertical passes, and then it gets really tough after that. I think at New England and Seattle in 2 of the 3 weeks after their next two. So they had to make the move now, or else you're trying to put Goff out there play against the Patriots, and that wouldn't be a good idea.
All right, Casey Joyner's with us here. There are some of the big storylines for Week 11. Let's get your thoughts on Eagles and Seahawks. Give me your, the way that you see this game in the football scientist lab.
If the Eagles followed the game plan they had last week, if they said we're going to power run the football and we're going to do these things like this, I would say they have a good chance. I don't have a lot of faith in their game planning that they're going to do that. I don't know that that's going to be their mode of approach, and I just wonder if they might get out play called. And not only that, their path to victory, that's their one path, and if that doesn't work and, say, Seattle gets Rawls back, Seattle has a lot more paths to victory. So I think Philadelphia goes and makes it a lot more competitive than maybe some people think, but I think 7 out of 10 times Seattle wins this one.
KC Joyner here on the Sports Bash. He'll be back on Monday, and we'll look back over the film and see what happened in this one as he has the Seahawks beating the Eagles, as many do. That game right here on 97.3 ESPN. The pregame coverage starts at 3. Merrill and Mike at 4:25. Enjoy the football. Who wins, Goldberg or Lesnar?
I think that Lesnar's got to get the win, and if Goldberg doesn't want him to get the win back, I think Lesnar will just take it.
You see any busted open foreheads, any elbows coming into play in this one? I'll tell you what. I saw Goldberg was quoted saying that after his Monday night that his body was sore. I said, uh-oh, I feel bad for you, pal.
I've seen him quoted. I believe we have a quote on ESPN actually where he said that he would not be surprised if he goes to the hospital after the match. So in real life, goes to the hospital. So it's
I don't know if you've ever met Goldberg or been around him, but man, on television, he sweats like a crazy man, and that concerns me a little bit. I see a guy 50 sweating profusely like that. I'm like, taking some of the bumps he's about to take after 12 years out of the ring. That's going to be an interesting night, but should be fun.
And hoping a 37-year-old Lesnar, if you're sweating like that, hoping a 37-year-old Lesnar who tends to fight, tends to be a stiff wrestler anyway, to use their parlance and things. And you're hoping that he doesn't drop you or something. That could be a risky thing. Yeah.
All right, that's the of course WWE on ESPN. Casey Joyner writing for them as well. He was at the power plant earlier this week. The power plant, like it's WCW, down at the training center for WWE for NXT. So check out his WWE stuff as well as his NFL, college football, and fantasy football stuff. Casey, my man, we'll talk to you on Monday.
Sounds great, man. Appreciate it.